She's a motivator, millionaire mentor, Jesus lover, serial entrepreneur, mother, and former Wall Street attorney who comes with her own personal trigger warning. On a mission to teach you how to empower yourself and heal your life from the inside out. And now, welcome to Deep Throat, and by that I mean throat chakra, with Liana Shanti.
Aloha, everyone. This is your host, your girl, Liana. And by girl, I mean 51-year-old suburban mother of two. I'm excited for this new platform, this new way to reach so many more people with my message of healing and unconditional love, empowerment and sovereignty. Deep Throat, and by that I mean throat chakra, is a platform to showcase what healing your life really looks like, where I will be inviting some of the most amazing empowered women and the men who support them to share their journeys, triumphs, struggles, and everything in between. About the name, throat chakra is the hub of the human design. It's where everything manifests, and we will be going deep on this podcast. I came out of the womb empowered and with an activated throat chakra from day one, and have been encouraging and empowering people since I was in elementary school, and I have never stopped. In this very first episode, I'm going to give you a bit about myself, my perspective, my approach, and my personal journey. And then we'll go from there. I have so many exciting episodes planned. I'm going to start out by saying I have the most amazing, supportive, loving family and friends and community. And that is what has brought me to this place and to this understanding and awareness of what this podcast would be all about. I do tend to trigger certain types of people, which is why my intro says I come with my own trigger warning. You know, nothing is more scary, more threatening, and more enraging to the patriarchy than a truly empowered woman, especially a woman who earns a lot of money. I made my first million in my 20s, who truly loves herself at all times, is very successful, speaks her mind at all times, encourages, educates, and empowers people to be independent and free, and who also happens to be a mom who homeschools and has the 3 Bs, blonde hair, blue eyes, and big boobs. And realize that by patriarchy, I'm not referring to men, I'm referring to the people, men and women, who perpetuate the patriarchy into families and who support it. The patriarchy, which may surprise you, is primarily supported and sustained by women. Take my mother wound course and you'll understand more about that. But mothers carry the patriarchy when they believe that they have to be the one who cooks and cleans. Mothers carry the patriarchy when they stay with a husband who watches porn rather than have a deeply satisfying sexual relationship with his wife. Mothers carry the patriarchy when they allow their spouse to hit them, yell at their kids, abuse their kids physically or sexually, and they still stay in the marriage. Mothers who tell their daughters how to dress. Mothers who hate themselves, loathe their bodies, and project that onto their kids. Mothers who allow their sons to sit around at holidays watching sports while their daughters are asked to help cook and clean. But we can't put the blame on mothers. In fact, there's no one to blame about anything. It's only always about healing yourself. People are brainwashed and conditioned by their own family cults, by society, by church cults. Churches that say that men are the head of the home. They're not. There should never be a hierarchy in any home. Churches that say women should stay with men who abuse them. Churches and religions that say women are inferior. Churches that say women should cover up and dress a certain way. Churches that say being gay is wrong or bad. Churches that tell you how to live your life. But let's get one thing straight. Men are definitely not the problem either. And masculinity is not toxic, despite this crazy, insane climate trying to convince everybody that it is. We need men. We need masculine energy, divine masculine energy. The masculine is the container for the feminine. I would not be the woman I am today without the decades of unconditional love I received from my father and from my husband and even my ex-husband, who was incredibly supportive and loving, and many other amazing and incredible men along the way. Women were designed to be leaders. In matriarchal cultures, historically, like the Minoan and Mycenaean, there weren't wars. Women are meant to lead. They are leaders by nature. Our creative sexual power. We have the ability to create life. Men in their divine masculine are so needed to be containers for this creation. And we are going to have so many episodes on this topic. But about my approach, I do a lot of things and have a lot of roles. Spiritual teacher, author, energy worker, artist, mentor, mom, you name it. But I hate titles. People have always been trying to figure me out my entire life and put me in a box. Definitely project who they think I am, or even worse, who they believe I should be, how I should act, what I should look like, what I should say. People who have worked with me in business, in a business capacity, refer to me as a brainiac who doesn't sleep, a strong leader, unafraid, working harder than anyone else, tireless. When I was on Wall Street working as a corporate attorney, I led big teams of people on giant mergers and acquisitions. And my management style was always the complete opposite of micromanaging. I have a gift for recognizing people's strengths, and I would assign work accordingly and then tell people the deadline and let them go do their thing. I would never check on them, never babysit. They were adults. And some people thrive in that style. They go do their thing on their own time in their own way. And as long as they deliver the final product on time and it's top quality, I don't care what they do in between. A lot of other attorneys I worked with required long work hours for their teams, constantly looking over their shoulders, hovering, micromanaging. I personally will not work in a condition like that, so I definitely wasn't about to inflict that on my team. But on the other end of the coin, I didn't have time for lazy work or sloppy work or rushed work. This was the top law firm in the world, and our clients demanded perfection from us. We were all expected to deliver, and I didn't have time to keep people on my team who gave me work that I had to end up redoing myself. So I would quickly remove them from my team and bring in someone else who would do the work effectively. And of course, some people consider that harsh, and you know what? It is. But guess what else? Harsh isn't a bad thing. One thing I've learned throughout my life is that when people label you, they're projecting on you. And by saying you're harsh, you might automatically think that's bad. I knew otherwise. I knew that what people considered harsh was a necessary attribute in that environment. But when you're trained as a child to think harsh is bad, or loud is bad, or strong is bad, or boundaries are bad because your parents didn't have any, and because you were in an environment that was a cult where you had to follow those exact rules, you go into the outside world and people say things like, wow, you're harsh, and you instantly feel bad. You feel shame. You feel guilt. You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm too harsh. When in reality, harsh, great. That's kind of a compliment because it meant that I was getting my shit done and getting it done really well. And the people who did their work with excellence, they loved me. They said, she's the sweetest, kindest boss I ever had. She's too nice. When my legal assistants wanted to go out on dates on Friday nights, these were college kids. Their work was done. I said, go for it. Have fun. Be back in the morning. Some attorneys, if they had to be in the office until 4 a.m., which was common, they would require their entire team to be there till 4 a.m. That made no sense to me. They did what they needed to do. Let them go. Let them have fun. Let them be happy. They'll be more motivated to work for you. In fact, when I first got to the firm, it was totally green, brand new, junior attorney on one of my first big deals with one of the most senior partners there, who was a legend. And literal books have been written about him. Movies are made about him. And I was about to leave on a Friday night. I was done. I did all my work. I was only on that deal. I was brand new. And he started yelling at me on the phone. He called my office and said, where do you think you're going? I said, home. He said, no, you're not. And he started raising his voice. And I hung up the phone on him. And my friend who was sitting in my office, she's like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're going to get fired. And I said, you know what? If I get fired, I get fired. No one, and I mean no one, not even him, is going to talk to me like this. Called me back. He said, what are you doing? I said, I already said, I did my work. I'm going home. I'll be back on Sunday. This was a Friday night. Our clients were Israeli, huge merger. And they don't work Saturdays. It's the Sabbath for them. So I'm like, great, I can have a day to relax, recuperate, rejuvenate, and be ready to come Sunday morning. And he was not okay with that because, of course, he's a big time partner and everybody did what he said. And he was on 5 other deals. So he was going to be there till probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And he felt like I should be too. And I hung up again, a second time. He called me a third time and he said, are you serious? You're seriously hanging up on me. Do you know who I am? I said, I know exactly who you are. And I'm very grateful to be working for you, but I will not be yelled at. And he started yelling again. So I hung up a third time, started packing up my stuff. And my friend was terrified. She literally was sitting in the corner, like scared to death. And she's like, nice knowing you. I'm like, yeah, well, so be it. And this man actually came to my office, and this guy just so you know, law firm life, partners don't go to associates' offices. We're like the lowly newbies. They think we know nothing. There's a definite hierarchy within the Wall Street white shoe law firms. And so he came to my office, which that in and of itself was a radical act of some kind of heresy. And I looked him in the eye. I'm like, hello, how you doing? And he's like, not great. What do you think you're doing? What's going on? I said, look, I'm grateful to work for you. You're brilliant. This is like the best assignment, the best deal. I could not be more grateful to be at this firm, to be given this opportunity, to be able to show you guys what I can do, to work for this client. It's all massive blessing, but you're not going to yell at me. You're not going to treat me like that. My own parents don't yell at me. It's not going to be okay for you to do it either. I did my work. If there was something else legitimate for me to do, I will stay and do it. You know that I've been here till 4 a.m. every night this week. I am on no other deals. The client is off on Saturday. They will not be needing us, contacting us, or emailing us. And I will be home resting so that when I come back on Sunday, I am ready for the client. And he looked at me and he said, you're right. I'm very sorry. Have a nice day. See you Sunday. And that was it. Never again. Not only did he not ever talk to me like that again, no one did. No one in the firm. Meanwhile, my colleagues were getting abused left and right. Total narc central, right? And never happened to me. I'm like, these are like the nicest partners in the world. And people are like, you're crazy because that guy's a dick. That guy's an asshole. That guy's a control freak. I'm like, not with me. It was like I set the tone for who I am, even though I didn't know what I was doing. I was so brand new, but I knew what my quality of work was. I know how conscientious and how hardworking and what I bring to the table. And that was it. I wasn't going to compromise that, not for a massive, giant 6-figure job in my early 20s, not for anything, not for the prestige, not going to compromise who I am. And it worked. It set the tone for the entire time that I was there. My teams of people loved working for me and always requested to be put on my deals for that reason. The people I fired off my teams, they weren't fans, and that's okay. I was not there for a tea party, and I'm not here for one either. It's a perfect example of how you are not one thing to all people, and you have to stop worrying about what people think or say about you. You have to be yourself, authentic, true, clear with your purpose, clear with your vision, your dreams, your life path. You are you. And how people perceive you is based on, first of all, how well they know you. Number 2, in what capacity they know you. And most importantly, number 3, who they are and what it is that they are projecting onto you. It's no different than my life now. These themes are always the same, just different contexts. Now, in the work that I do as a spiritual teacher and an author and a life path mentor and motivator, I have groups, I have private groups, and every once in a while I take someone out. I remove them permanently. And every time it's for the same thing, creating chaos, creating drama, going and attacking other students. And, in one case, one crazy case, a woman who was going behind the scenes to actively try to destroy women, do weird rituals on pregnant women, like full moon rituals with their names and their birth, the date of the birth of their child, and prying into their lives, calling them personal phone calls to well over 50 ladies in the group, getting personal details, trying to create division, reading poetry and crying on the phone in the group. And when I finally took her out, 140 members wrote over 1,000 comments about the very specific nature and facts of the things she had done and the actions she had taken that were very harmful. 1,000 comments on what could be described as nothing less than sociopathic behavior, including traveling to visit other members of the group for an overnight stay and taking multiple kitchen appliances, full-size kitchen appliances with her, including an air fryer. A large 30 by 40 acrylic painting that these people told me she carried room to room. I was mind blown when these stories came out. I had not heard the majority of these stories, 1,000 comments of a crazy behavior. Let that sink in. So yeah, I removed her. Is she going to love me? Absolutely not. She probably feels the sting of some kind of unhealed rejection and abandonment and anger and frustration and feeling on the outside because nobody wanted her. People started blocking her on their own. And people would come to me and ask me, should I block her, Liana? Should I block? I'm like, you do what feels best for you, which is my answer to everyone. You can probably hear me say that at least 100 times a month to various people. If you feel that that resonates, then do that. And I always tell my group members, don't assume that because I have someone in the group that I'm working with and I'm helping, do not assume that you are required to have some kind of friendship or relationship outside of this group. Use your own discernment, make your own decisions, and really trust yourself in that. And so women started blocking this particular person. And I let it go on for a long time. We're talking close to a year from when people initially started blocking her. I had hopes for her. I had hopes that she was going to take a turn for the better. I am an endless optimist, and I will give and give and give until I see that is a futile endeavor. And it was very clear that at this point, it was a danger to my community. I removed another student who constantly created chaos in my health group. She was practicing a form of alternative medicine that I believe is complete and total quackery, no science base whatsoever. And I told her that. I didn't volunteer that opinion. She asked me, she said, Liana, what do you think of it? I said, it's quackery, it's harmful, you're hurting people, and there's zero science to support it. She did not love that answer. She had built a career on this quackery, which is my opinion, and I've seen it harm people, and she's free to do what she wants. She asked my opinion. But what she was really doing, projecting her mother wound. She was begging for my approval. She wanted my approval. She wanted to try to convince me, because of her wounds. She kept coming back with, but what about this? But what about that? I'm like, look, end the conversation. There's nothing you can say that's going to convince me. You don't need my approval. Go off yonder and teach this method. Like, you asked, I answered, let's move on. And I cut her off. I'm not going to engage in drama. She didn't like it. She didn't like the fact that no one needs my approval. And I'm very clear about that. But I'm also very clear about my direct opinions if you ask me. I don't volunteer them. I don't really care. If you want to know, I'm going to tell you. But I'm not going to candy coat it. And I'm not looking for agreement. I'm not looking for coming to some terms where we're on the same page. We don't need to be on the same page. I'm not invested in your personal choices, and you shouldn't be invested in mine. My unwillingness to take on the role of her authoritarian mother and tell her what to do was so triggering to her. She went on a tirade, and by tirade, I mean more than 16 comments on one post alone, complaining about everything. On a particular program, by the way, that has sold over 10,000 copies and has had radical physical life proof for thousands and thousands of people. I have files and files of testimonials. And she was complaining. And, I see the writing on the wall when people are beginning to spin out into their self-destructive ways. This is not my first rodeo, certainly not the first time someone was angry with me because I didn't do what they wanted or expected me to do. This woman really believed wholeheartedly that I should be micromanaging every aspect of her life, including telling her what exact protein powder to buy. And I just stopped answering her. That's not my role. That's not my job. It's a group of colleagues to get together and support each other. And it's a free group. It's voluntary. It is not part of my program. It's something that I allow people in. It's, you're in it. If it's working for you, great. If not, don't be in it. But a lot of students started privately messaging me to say that she was disruptive and they were being disturbed by her constant chaos. It was actually having such a negative effect on the group. And I removed her. It's a group that no one's entitled to. And I clearly state that. She begged and pleaded. I have multiple emails from her where she was begging me to stay. And I said, no, my decision's final. And I stopped answering her. And that's really where people go off the deep end with me. It's like when I stop communicating with them, it is like the demons come up out from the graveyard. It's like, you don't need me in your life. You don't need my approval. Like, why are you begging me? I'm like this big, bad, awful person to you. Why are you begging to stay? I don't need this. And when I get to a point of actually removing someone from either my community, my group, my life, a lot of damage has already been done. And by that point, everybody close to me, from my husband to my kids to my best friends, have all already said, Liana, what are you doing? Why are you allowing this person to drain you? Why are you allowing this person to drain other people? Why are you allowing this bullshit behavior? Why are you so fucking tolerant? And my answer is always the same. I have hope. I have hope even for the people that nobody else has hope for. And it's taken me pretty much the better part of 51 years to realize, okay, my eternal optimism and hope is a little bit out there. It's a little bit naive sometimes because some of these people are hell bent on self-destruction. I can't save them. I can't save a single soul. And so I'm much better at it. I do it quicker now. I'm still super tolerant, ultra patient, but my limits are definitely more clear, better for everybody. And I go to great lengths to try and salvage deteriorating members of my community. I'm not interested in back and forth drama. I don't do drama. And, sadly, in situations like this, I see even worse deterioration. This particular woman moved to Mexico and was aggressively attacked by rabid dogs. It was the weirdest stuff. Not one dog, many dogs, swarms of bugs, and other horrific situations. And I, of course, saved everything, screenshot and saved these DMs that she was sending me on the regular, just to have a record, because she was completely unhinged. And you never know, people can go crazy. They do, they have. But she sadly never made the connection that her outer chaos was a reflection of her inner chaos. And everything she was projecting on me was something within herself that needed to be healed. And she tried to blackmail me, which is why I saved everything. Funny, not funny, but her big threat was, I'm going to write stories about you. And she has, fake ones, but whatever. She joined forces with some other nutcases out there. Okay, cool. There's lawyers for that. I have work to do. But, my role in my groups is to preserve the peace, to preserve safety for the whole. I can't cater to a handful of individuals that feel entitled and believe they deserve special treatment. I am, if nothing else, a master of my own energy. And when entitled people realize they have zero ability to influence how I act, they become enraged. We're talking demons full tilt. And I have stated repeatedly, no one is special on this earth. Well, either that or we're all special, but no one's better than anyone else. And there's just some people that have a hard time with that, especially people who think they're special, want to be special, were told they were special. And I really believe that entitlement is a disease, and it is one that is very hard to heal from. In fact, just last week on my Instagram stories, I shared a conversation with a student who said to me, but Liana, doesn't healing make us better than people who are choosing dark? I said, no, it just means we're choosing light, and we get to have the consequences for choosing light. They get to have the consequences for choosing dark, AKA rabid dogs, bug infestation, and a multitude of other problems. Life will show you that. Life is all about life proof. It's my mantra, life proof. How's that working for you? I stole that from Dr. Phil. Is what you're doing working for you? Not what anybody else thinks. Is it working for you? If it is, keep on keeping on. If not, do something else. People who know me as a spiritual teacher, an energy worker, a shaman, they've done spiritual journeys with me, see me in a totally different way. Just a pure, gentle, loving soul filled with unconditional love. And they have this experience of me that is very unlike my business self, my administrator self, any other self. But, I think in today's world, the quote spiritual field, it's just gotten out of control. Everybody wants to call themselves a spiritual teacher, but they're actually not healing. It's very odd. I don't consider anybody a spiritual teacher if they're not completely connected to Jesus. So we'll get to that a little later, making that super clear here on podcast number 1. Not your church Jesus, not your religious Jesus, not your mom's Jesus, the real Jesus, the one that you can have a personal relationship with. He is the avatar for getting off this planet with your soul intact. I'll say a brief word about that at the end. But, a lot of the people out there that think they're holier than thou, and they're just, presenting this persona that's just not real. And so people project an image that a spiritual teacher is someone that only wears white, and they're floating on a cloud, wearing crystals and singing Kumbaya all day. But they get that projection because a lot of self-proclaimed spiritual teachers are merely occupying a canned space. They're trying to maintain that they're always a floaty spiritual being. Like they don't use swear words. They don't have orgasms, right? That's not me. I wear what I want, often low-cut tops, whatever the fuck I want. I swear, as you just heard. I'm never trying to be what people think I am, think I should be, or think a spiritual teacher should be, or embody, or embrace. I have had people say, are long nails evil? I mean, I get the weirdest ass questions. Are long nails evil? Oh my God, you have tattoos. Is that evil? I mean, but I get it though. I laugh only because of the absurdity of this earth. But people are programmed. They're programmed by their parents. They might have had a parent that said tattoos are bad. People really believe that. They do. They're out there. Churches believe that. Churches teach that if you're wearing a low-cut top, you're some kind of a hussy or a hoe. It's like these are real beliefs that have to be deprogrammed. They're all nonsense, but they're living and taking up space in the brains of so many people. It's so crazy. I once had a lady, putting that nicely, tell my admissions director at my health coaching school, Liana's brilliant. The science is spot on, but I'm not enrolling because she has her big boobs out. My admissions director and I had quite the laugh about this because seriously, Karen, you hate yourself, okay? Women with tits out should not threaten your existence or your repressed sexuality. Deal with that. Do you hear yourself? You just literally said the program is great. That's presumably what she would be enrolling for, not for my big tits in a photo, nonetheless. But that's the reason you're depriving yourself of an education. Okay, cool. But, this is exactly the kind of thing that carries on the patriarchy, the belief that women can be either virgins or they can be whores. There is a lot more to women than that. Hopefully most of you know that. You definitely will if you keep listening to this podcast. But in the patriarchy, women are either sexy or they're intelligent or they're very wealthy or they're moms. Don't get me started on moms. We will be having many episodes on motherhood, an area in which I have over 36 years of collective experience, really 22 kids, but the overlap between my son and my daughter, homeschooling with my kids 7 days a week, 24/7. So I have rich resources of material on that topic. The rules in the patriarchy do not allow you to embrace your sexuality and be wealthy on your own, not marry a rich guy. And believe me, marrying a rich guy is fine. It's great. But when you're wealthy on your own and you're bringing home your own dough, that's not okay. You almost can't even be that as a woman, but you definitely can't be that and have sexuality as well. Embrace your sexuality. Be a mom too. Forget that. No, these things just don't interact. And on top of it, be super happy and fulfilled and content and living a dream life and loving orgasms as much as you love green juice. Being vegan, just not allowed. These things can't be together, right? So, of course I don't care. None of this affects me. It never has. As I said earlier, I came out of the womb empowered and have never not been. But, women can't win. And, trust me, men really can't either these days because you can't be masculine. You can't be anything that you're naturally made to be. We're going to have whole topics on divine masculine as well. I have some amazing men that I'm going to invite onto this podcast. And, so this is not a one-sided thing, but women, we just can't win. When I was in sales, I had a sales career after my law career, and I happened to be radically successful in that environment as well. I was earning more than any of my colleagues worldwide, but a lot of people hadn't met me yet. I showed up for a cocktail party on the mainland for an awards trip, and I happened to be the last to arrive because I flew in from Hawaii. I wore a tight dress that I loved. My long blonde hair extensions, my nails were on point. Never going to change who I am because people don't like it, or people are triggered by it, or people say, well, you shouldn't dress like that. I'll dress however the fuck I want. But definitely not going to change how I dress because some Karen or Chuck are triggered. But the men, when I walked in that room, it was like being a fish in a fishbowl. The men were instantly drawn like moths to a flame. It was so bad. It was so obvious like what was going on that this really nice, amazing gentleman came up to me and asked if he could walk me everywhere. He said, do you mind if I walk you to your room? Do you mind if I walk you to dinner? Do you mind if I walk you to down these hallways? He said, I'm actually afraid for your safety. These men are like vultures. And, I tapped into it because I'm like, God, I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. And he's like big, he was like 6'3". And I'm just like, is this even safe? But I intuitively felt he was safe. And on this week-long trip, he stayed by my side the whole time. This was not a trip where spouses and kids were invited. So I was alone and he stayed by my side. He was a true angel and very protective. And we're still in touch to this day. And, I'm just so grateful. He's just one of the many amazing men I've had in my life in different capacities. But, these men, they were drawn to me like moths to a flame, but they were triggered. They were triggered men because the way I looked didn't compute with how much money I made. I was making millions, way more than any of the men there, including the management. And these men were very used to their own success, and they were kind of, a little arrogant, a little narcissistic, a little like, look at me. And a lot of the women, there were not many women though. It was a very male-dominated industry, just like my law career. But many of the women who were there were probably only like less than 10 at that particular function. And, I don't know, maybe 80 or so people total. But the women were drawn to these like very successful men. And so these men were used to that. They're used to this kind of attention. They're used to their own success. And when they see on the surface, blonde hair, blue eyes, big boobs, tight dress, I'm not supposed to be somebody making millions of dollars. I'm not supposed to be better than them, but I was by a lot. One guy wearing a wedding ring, as an aside, came up to me, looked me up and down in that just very elementary sophomoric way that certain men do. And he goes, now I understand why you sell so much. I was pissed. Definitely wasn't coming back with a super gentle response to that one. And I replied to him. I said, actually, mister, your wife needs 3 glasses of wine before she'll fuck you. Listen up. My looks are a detriment. You're in sales. You already know that it's a proven fact that 80% of households, women make all the buying decisions. You think women automatically want to buy from me? No, they don't. They're instantly thinking, I'm going to flirt with their husband, want their man. They don't realize in the majority of cases, the only way I'd ever be interested in their husband was literally if humanity depended on his sperm to carry on the human race. But, every woman thinks that. She thinks every woman's after her man. And I get it. But my looks were actually a huge detriment in that career. And I had to expend an inordinate amount of energy to cater to the wife to make sure that she realizes I'm not after your man. And look, it's definitely not because I'm some extraordinary beauty. It's like my overall looks. It's combined mostly with my energy and the way I carry myself. If you know anything about human design, my particular chart has all 4 tantric channels fully activated. And I've always been extremely comfortable in my skin, my sexuality, my sexual energy is off the charts, and it's creative energy. Sexual energy is not just for sex. It is creative energy. And of course, it didn't just trigger men, it triggered women too. One of my places of work when I was in sales, I was wearing pink pants one day, and I had dropped some of my books on the floor. And I bent down to pick them up. And when I bent over, you could see my thong. It kind of like the pants rose down below the thong. Next day, coming to work, outside on the lanai where everyone would eat, take breaks, some of them smoked, there's an article from People magazine with a picture of Paris Hilton walking around Beverly Hills with her thong showing way outside her pants, but she's standing upright, unlike me who was bent over. And the article was entitled Fashion Don'ts. Of course, I knew it was directed at me. Her pants actually happened to be pink as well. And my manager, who was an awesome guy, who I was very good friends with, said, they're just jealous and hateful because you're hot and rich. But you know what? I'm going to reprimand them for harassing you. This is not okay. And I said, you know what? Nah, leave it. I took a Sharpie and I wrote in bold letters, sales tip, ladies, stop focusing on my ass and tight pants and maybe you'll sell something. End of story, right? They ripped it up. They removed it. Of course they did, because I was calling out their self-hatred. I don't know what they thought. I think they thought I was going to be embarrassed or ashamed and, oh gosh, right, I shouldn't wear these pants. No, they were miserable. They were unhappy. They were not selling anything, right? So, and the funny thing about it is I've been fat, I've been skinny, I've been everything in between, still the same. You would have thought being overweight, people would have liked that better, like women would feel more comfortable around me, but nope. Then they're pissed off because I still love myself. I still dress however the fuck I want. I'm still super confident, always, every time. It's like you just can't win with people who hate themselves. And this is something that I just reemphasize to my students over and over and over. And it takes a long time to get it. They're just like, I don't get it. How could that be? How could you always just love yourself? And I'm like, it's possible. It'll happen. Trust me. And, just recently, one of my most amazing students shared with me and shared publicly that she finally gets it. She finally loves herself despite all the shadow, all the dark stuff, all the hatred of her physical appearance. She really loves herself now. And yeah, it's possible for everybody. I definitely had a massive head start because I was raised that way. But you can do it for yourself, which is the basis of my life's work. It's what my life's work is about, teaching you how to love yourself for real. So a few more things about me and this podcast, just to give you a little more context. I was 8 months pregnant as an attorney in New York on 9/11, watched the whole thing come down, watched people diving out of the World Trade Center, had an extreme amount of stress from this event, and ended up leaving New York not too long after my daughter was born. She was born a month later. And we moved to Hawaii. So I moved to Hawaii about 20 years ago. Been here a long time. I knew God was leading me to the place that felt like home for the very first time ever since I stepped foot here. The first time I came to Hawaii, I was 18. And it was, for a short trip. And then I came back again and again and again. And I have a lot more to share on that topic from the spiritual perspective. And I will do that on future episodes. And as I said, I then had a very great, fun, and lucrative sales career. And I started my online ventures about a decade ago with Organic Vegan, which led to a nutrition school, Health Mastery Institute. I've been vegan for 30 years. I initially went vegan for the animals, strictly ethical, but vegan does not mean healthy. Healthy became much more of a priority for me way later on. And I healed completely with whole foods and supplements. I also ended up attending nutrition school, but I am what's called an autodidact. I learn on my own. I am a perpetual student. I have studied nutrition for over 30 years and counting now. I read scientific studies weekly. I subscribe to scientific journals, and I read almost every book that comes out in nutrition, especially the books that are completely opposite of my perspective. I read all of the books that come out on high protein diets and high fat diets like keto, because I'm always looking, is there something legitimate? Has there been science that finally confirms something? And do I need to know about this? Because my goal is always for my students to understand how to be healthy and how to prevent diseases. And the top doctors in the world, including Dr. Kim Williams, who was the past president of the American College of Cardiology, he has said that there are two types of cardiologists: vegans and those who haven't read the data. And, he says he wasn't trying to trash his colleagues, but he said, I don't want to stop until the leading cause of death among cardiologists is no longer cardiovascular disease. So, pretty powerful stuff. And that's the goal for me, is for people to have a long, healthy life, and for my own family, especially for my own family, my own kids. And so if there was something that came out there in any type of nutrition that pointed in another direction, like actual science, real science, not cherry-picked science, not meat industry agenda science, not sugar industry agenda science, like real science, peer-reviewed scientific studies, I want to know. So I read studies weekly. I read almost every book that comes out on nutrition, and if there is, I want to know what it says. So we will definitely be having episodes on topics of nutrition. I'll probably have some HMI health coaches talking about some amazing radical, just life transformation stories, and some topics on veganism from a really unique perspective that tends to shock not only vegans, but carnivores. I definitely have a perspective that is triggering to a lot of people, even the vegans, and so like I said, I come with my own trigger warning. But I want to say, and I was going to get back to this, I mentioned it earlier, before I go any further, I have to tell you, I do have an agenda here. It's a big one, and I'll be very transparent about it. My entire life's purpose is to get every single person who ever listens to me to develop your own personal, intimate, internal relationship with Jesus. And that freaks people out sometimes, like the Jesus thing. It's another trigger because I've had a lot of people on my social media say, oh my God, you mentioned Jesus and I left. I stopped following you. And then we came back, and then there's other people, because I think people tend to think, oh, she's new age because she talks about energy healing and Akashic records and Lemuria and crystals. And then they hear me say, Reiki causes darkness in your life and the new age is corrupt and it's the Luciferian agenda. They're like, who is she? What did she got? She got to pick something. Yeah, I did. I picked Jesus, the real Jesus. And that's what I'm doing. And there's people who come from like a Christian background. They're like, oh yes, Jesus is the way. He's the only way. He's the Lord and Savior. And then they hear me talking about Lemuria and ascension and energy work and light bodies, so they freak out. They're like, that's not Jesus. No, it is definitely not the fake Jesus. It's definitely not the Bible Jesus that is preached by men, by patriarchal churches every Saturday or Sunday across the world. But, ultimately he's the avatar for this planet. He's pure love, unconditional love. And he's not a dogma. He's not a religion. He's a teacher. He was a man, a human, a carpenter. Never said he was a savior. Never said he was anything other than here to help you save yourself, save your own soul, the path out of suffering on this 3D prison planet, this gorgeous, magnificent, physically beautiful, nurturing Mother Earth of ours, where human beings and darkness have partnered. All the darkness, all the Luciferian stuff didn't originate with humans. This came from other places, and human beings have been, unfortunately, lured in and hijacked by darkness. You see it, wars, somebody that's murdering, killing, trafficking humans, people that are living in abject poverty. They are subjected to such extreme, harsh, horrific conditions. This is not love. That's not love, and racism, sexism, speciesism, abuse, all of this has been on earth since the beginning of time. It is not going to end. So my role, I'm here to empower you so you can take your life back, your freedom, your passion, embody light, make yourself the container for light and do whatever that means for you. It's not about trying to fix the world. It's not about trying to heal other people. It's about healing yourself and removing from your life everything that oppresses you, everything that harms you, and none of my teachings, none of my programs, a lot of free stuff. I have tons of free stuff available to all of you, but there's no dogma ever in anything I teach, not now, not ever. And in fact, when my students ask me, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do X? Should I do Y? Well, the reason you do this is because you're trained by authoritarian parents and authoritarian education, compulsory schools, which, by the way, schools were created to feed the Industrial Revolution so people could come out of school and be very obedient workers. It's a big reason why I'm completely opposed to school. That'll be its own multiple topics, I'm sure. But you're trained by these authoritarian parents who must approve of your decisions. And so you look for an authority figure. You project your mother wound and your father wound onto your teachers. What I do, I send you back to yourself as your own authority. I give you questions to ask yourself. Does this resonate with you? Do you feel like leaving this marriage would be good for you? Do you feel like staying would be good for you? I flat out tell everyone it is so much better to make a, quote, wrong decision and learn discernment rather than do what someone else says and you never learn. It's the same way I parent my kids. The 4 rules of a parent are to protect and nurture when your kids are young and initiate and empower when they are teenagers. So when you're in the empowerment and initiation phase, you have to let them make the decisions. You have to sometimes hold your tongue and let them make the decisions that aren't going to have the best outcome. But as long as it's not anything dangerous, that's the good thing about having them be empowered and initiated in the home. You can protect them from danger. Decisions are outright just crazy, but you really have to give them a super, super wide range of decision making so they learn discernment, because if they're always doing what you say, they will never learn discernment. They will always be just looking for someone else to tell them what to do, and you have to refuse to tell them what to do. And that's what I do with my students. And sometimes people get pissed at me for that. I mean, I will absolutely tell you, yeah, certain locations are dark. They're dark energy. I don't recommend going there. Certain supplements, don't take it. They're harmful. They're going to cause harm. Doing plant medicines right now, getting drunk on alcohol, high on weed, going to open you up to entity influence. And, I've referred thousands of people to a book called The Unquiet Dead by Dr. Edith Fiore on that exact issue. But, read it, listen, don't take my advice. It's just, here's what I'm going to say. I'm never going to candy coat it. I'm going to be very direct, very strong in my assertions. But what you do with it, up to you. It's like once I say it, once I put it out into the ethers, I have no investment in what you do with it. Like it has zero effect, zero impact on my life. I don't take it personal, right? And, of course, now many of my students do actually heed my advice and my warnings. They have been with me a long time. They take those warnings seriously now. They didn't always. I have a lot of stories where people say, yeah, you told me not to do plant medicines, Liana, and I didn't like that answer. So I stopped following you and I went and did it. And oh boy, I'm back now because X, Y, and Z. Very serious, unfortunately, in some cases, very, very dark and negative things, life and death things, actually, for some people that I know are going through now, and it's devastating to me. It's heartbreaking to watch, but you have to. You can't make anybody do anything, and you shouldn't try. People have to make their own choices. Now a lot of my students choose to pay attention to my advice, my recommendations, because they did not like the life proof they got when they didn't. That's up to them. I mean, I genuinely don't care. It's like the teenager who knows fried foods give her acne, and she does it anyway. She's eventually either going to stop eating fried foods because she doesn't want the acne, or she's going to deal with the acne. There's only one of two things that they're going to do. They have to learn. They have to make their own decisions. They have to have their own discernment so they go out into the world as adults, trusting themselves. The number one thing as an empowered, sovereign person, you have to trust yourself above all other people. And I get that that's difficult. In the beginning, especially in the beginning of a healing journey, you have no basis on what to trust yourself with because you haven't had to. You've been told what to do. You've been told what not to do. And you probably have a string of decisions, like the majority of people, that you did make on your own and they turned out really bad. And instead of learning from that, because you didn't have loving, nurturing, protective, unconditionally loving parents to help you with that, help you with your bad decision, you got met with anger, punishment, threats, shame, guilt, because you made a bad choice. It's as if they never made bad choices, right? And so that's why it can be really hard on the beginning of a journey to really have discernment and really learn to trust yourself. But it's a process. It's the same thing I do with my kids. I'll give you an example. My daughter, a couple of years ago, I think it was exactly 2 years ago, she wanted to get a piercing. It's called a rook piercing in the ear, in the cartilage. And I'm not a fan. I don't like that. I am grossed out by that, my own self personally. And she asked me, she said, what do you think I should do? And so she was 18. She's 20 now. And I said, I think you should do what you feel is best. If you really want this, you should get it. She said, no, what do you think? I said, I already told you. She said, okay, let me rephrase that. Not what do you think I should do? Because I know you're not going to tell me. What do you think? How do you feel about this idea? Do you feel like this is a good idea? Like shamanically, psychically. That's my daughter's favorite phrase. And she's lived with me for 20 years, right? So I said, let me look into it. Looked into it. I said, yeah, I don't think it's a great idea. It doesn't look good. It looks like complications. I wouldn't do it. If it were me, it does not look good. So she thinks about it for a couple weeks and she makes an appointment. And my son is going, are you crazy? Like, when is mom wrong? Like what you asked her, she told you, and you're doing it anyway. And she's like, well, I feel like I did a lot of research. I feel like I know how to keep it clean. I know how to keep it from getting infected. I'm going to be super careful with it. I really, really want it. I love the way it looks. And I made the appointment. So my son looks at me and he's like, you're going to let her do this, Mom? I'm like, yeah, of course. It's her body. First of all, she's 18. Second of all, she's making this choice for herself. And he's like, but it's not going to turn out good. I said, I do know that, but I'm not going to interfere because this is relatively minor in the grand scheme of decision-making in life. And if I tell her, put up a big sort of energy here to try to get her to not do it, I'll probably be effective at that. Because if I can really just try to energetically show her that this is bad, she probably won't do it. But at the end of the day, she will always feel like she didn't make this decision because she didn't, right? It was my influence. And I refused to do that. So I said to her, tap into your heart, like feel into your body. You did the research. That's great. That's super responsible. And I know that my daughter is like incredibly responsible. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. She was a state champion in canoe racing. She has done a lot of things that require inordinate responsibility. And so I said that to her. I said, you're extremely responsible. You make excellent decisions. You have a 18-year history of making really good decisions for yourself. And so, trust that. But don't just go off your brain, tap into your body and feel if this feels good, feel if this feels right for you. Just make sure, And so time went by and the appointment time was coming up. And she's like, hey, Mom, will you go with me? Will you drive me? I said, okay. And my son is still just going, I don't get it. Why? And you're driving her? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to support her decision. This is her life, her body, her decision. So she got the piercing. So ever since then, that thing has been a pain in the ass. It has been repeatedly infected. It's been painful. If somebody even like bops her on the head lightly, she has a problem. It hurts like hell. She's taken it in, taken it out, tried different earrings, went back to the guy. He's like, yeah, it looks like when I did it, I double did it. Like he put the needle in and then it got stuck or some other thing. There was like excessive scar tissue. And so literally yesterday, the day before I'm doing this podcast, she comes to me, she's like, Mom, it's been a 2-year journey. I said, what has? She's like, this fucking rook piercing. I'm like, oh, the rook. Like we've had more conversations about this thing than I don't know what. And she's like, I made a decision. I said, okay, awesome, honey. What? And she's like, I'm taking it out. She's like, it's been painful. It's been infected. The other day it got barely touched and it was killing me. And I'm so sick and tired of it. And she's like, I should have listened to you. I should just done what you said. And of course, my son's right there going, see, told you. I don't know why you don't listen to Mom. I don't know why anybody doesn't listen to Mom. It's crazy. Like, she's right. And I said, it's not about being right. It's about she made this decision. She's had this 2-year lesson, this 2-year journey with this ear piercing. And as minor as that seems, it's actually major because it's not harmful in the big picture. It's been very frustrating, very annoying. And now she has like a scar there. But you know what? Some people have scars. A lot of people have scars. It's not the end of the world for sure. And better that at 18, I supported her in making her decision and gave her guidance. And, she said to me, I never really tapped into my body. She said, I did research and I was mentally convinced that this was okay because tons of people have it with no problem. But I didn't tap into my body. And I said, oh, why is that? Why do you think you didn't tap into your body? And she said, because I didn't want to. I didn't really want to know. I said, okay, well, I definitely don't recommend that. I definitely don't recommend you do that going forward. But, if you do, you'll have consequences that you're not going to love. You'll have life proof that is not great. And she said, no, I know, I get that now. And so she's, permanently taking it out, followed by going to get another one, a different one next week. That's her choice. She's 20 now. But, my point in sharing that story with you guys is for 10 years, I've been teaching. For 10 years, I've been online. I've never changed my foundation, which is that nobody's your authority in this universe, literally not one person. Everything I teach, every program, mother wound, father wound, NARC healing, Marine Mystery School, HMI, nobody is your authority in the universe. Not your parents, not your church, not your spouse, certainly not me, literally nobody. You ideally will partner with God. You'll be a co-creator with God, with Jesus. You'll have your own authority, all of your own sovereignty, making all of your own decisions, trusting yourself, and living in the container of those consequences. And you'll learn how to question things. It's so awesome too. I think I'll probably finish up with this little story, something else that happened yesterday. It's been a very, very productive, very fun, very fruitful, very interesting week. But I had a student in a private chat for my group, my private community. We were having a chat, an ongoing chat. And she said to me, I question your teachings. I question you sometimes. Like I question what you're saying. And then I tune into myself and I look at my life proof that I've had so far. She's a relatively newer student, which a year or less I consider new, because a lot of my people have been with me for a decade, on and off. Some have been with me, left, came back. But she said, I tune into myself and I look at the life proof I have, and then I know I'm on the right path. But if I'm questioning things, does that mean I don't have any faith? This was a genuine question. It was a beautiful question. It was a perfect question. And I said that to her. I said, I love this question. And I typed back to her, these are my exact words. I said, I completely understand where you're coming from. I think it is a great thing when people have doubts that come up and question things. I question everything. I literally question everything. I've questioned everything since I was a baby. Why is this? What is that? I would be in school and the teacher would do math a certain way. I'm like, why are you doing it that way? They would talk about dinosaurs. I'm like, dinosaurs aren't real. Why are you talking about that? Oh, the earth is millions of years. How do you know it's millions of years old? Oh, because scientists. What scientists? Who are they? What did they say? How do they know this? Where'd they get the information from? You're wrong. I don't see proof of this. You have to have your own proof. That is why life proof is my mantra. I question everything. And it's funny because I shared in this response to her, I told her that I'd shared this story about the time I went to an ashram for the first time in my life. I was in my early college years and I was studying, I had a triple major, one of which was theology and philosophy. And my teacher took us, we happened to be studying Hinduism at the time. And my teacher took us to an ashram. It was like a weekend trip to see Guru Shivala. And I grew up Catholic. So talk about cult. We'll talk about that at another point. But my mom was totally freaked out. She kept telling my dad, this is a bad idea. An ashram? Oh my God, no. This is like the people at the airports, with the bells and the singing the Hare Krishna. I'm like, oh my God, Mom, that is the Hare Krishna. That is the actual, like the Moonies. Like that's an actual cult. This is an ashram. This is a religious, like spiritual place. And she was so afraid I was going to get sucked into a cult. And my dad was like, have you met our daughter? Like, not going to get wrapped up in anything that's a cult. She's going to question everything. So yeah, I told my student, I said, I question everything. Always go deeply into my own body, because the brain might tell you a lot of different things. The brain is going to go for comfort. The brain is going to be going from wounds. Your inner children live in your reptilian brain. They're wounded, mother wound, father wound. They're going to tell you, you can't cut off Uncle Joe because he's part of the family. You have to go to Thanksgiving dinner and sit there in front of a dead turkey with your, creepy great grandfather. Whatever it is, your brain's going to tell you a lot of nonsense, right? Not your body. When you really can be in tune with your body, not mistake intuition for inner children, but really know your body, go into your body for resonance and ask Jesus, show me. And it's harder in the beginning. It's like you definitely get mixed signals in the beginning, but over time you just work harder and harder at it. And mainly you look for life proof. And, in the beginning of any true healing journey, there's dark night of the soul. I mean, Google it, read it, research it. Check out Ross Bishop's book, Healing the Shadow. I think it'll kind of give you some insight into that. The healing journey is not life proof in the beginning. Definitely doesn't mean that everything is rainbow and unicorns. That's the new age. That's the love and light. That's the false positivity. There's definitely some challenges when you're uncovering your own trauma, your own abuse, your own pain, your own emotional state, your shadow, things you've done, things that you are carrying guilt and shame for that you have to release. It's not a rainbow unicorn journey. There's absolutely aspects of that. And eventually, when you heal, you get to a place where you're free, you're totally sovereign, and you're empowered, and you're internally happy. You're internally peaceful, and your happiness and peace never goes away. That doesn't mean that everything is always, a joyride. You have challenges, you have struggles, you have things in life that come up, but it's how you weather those storms. It's how you move through them with a total undisturbable inner peace and inner happiness that it's not able to be affected by anything on the outside. You have to deal with what's on the outside. But when you clear and heal and you embody light, you're a vessel for light, and you are aligned with Jesus, you are not going to have internal disturbance. And that's ultimately what it is, as a human, to have the most peaceful inner life. And very, very few people have it, but you can have it. A lot of my students have it, and they write a lot about it, talk a lot about it, share a lot about it. I will be having so many of them as guests on this podcast. But in wrapping up and finishing out what I was sharing with my student from yesterday, I told her the whole point of this work is to guide you to your own sovereignty. And that means if you don't resonate with anything, with my teachings, anyone else's teachings, part of the teachings, then my recommendation is always listen to yourself, exactly for that reason. Because when you truly empower people, it's just like the example I gave with my daughter. Empowering people does not mean empowering them to do what you want. It doesn't mean empowering them to follow you, do what you teach, live life how you do. I am a very, very independent thinker with a fully activated throat chakra, and I feel true immense joy for every woman and the men who support them, who steps into her true power, her true divine feminine power, whatever that looks like for her. And, I really feel like that's the value in being empowered, is that you're always making the decisions that are best for you and for your life. And for me, that's what I honor. I honor that as a teacher. I honor and respect people's choices. In fact, I have a lady who is amazing. She was in one of my private groups, and she decided to leave the private group about a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer than that actually now that I think about it. And it was for her own reasons. It just wasn't her vibe. And weeks after she left, she ended up joining my business school, and we chat regularly in our B school chat room and in the DMs. And, she's spectacular. She's an amazing person. And I respect and honor her choice to do what's best for her. I obviously don't take anything personal, but your choices are your results. And I think that's so important. It's so important that you always have to remember, when I make this choice, when I do this thing, I will be the sole responsible person for this decision. So that's it for episode 1 of the Deep Throat, and by that I mean throat chakra podcast. You can follow me at Liana Shanti on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also on YouTube now, Liana Shanti. My website is lianashanti.com, where you'll find all my programs, my free offerings, and my blog. And you can also go to illuminationsforecast.com if you'd like to subscribe to my weekly forecast message, which is everything from prayers and meditations, energy clearings, information on what's happening on the planet, the planets in the sky, a dash of quantum physics, lots of humor, lots of stories, and a frequent backyard rooster. So until next time, beautiful people, aloha.